Good evening, everyone. I will call this joint meeting of Assembly Ways and Means and Senate Finance to order. If I could please have staff call the roll. Thank you.
Senator Brooks. Senator Canizaro. Senator Dennis. Senator Dondero Loop. Senator Gokichia. Senator Hammond. Senator Kiefer. Senator Ratty. Senator Severs Gansert. Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Here.
Assemblyman Frierson. Assemblywoman Gorlow. Assemblyman Hafen. Assemblywoman Howdigi. Assemblyman Levitt. Assemblywoman Miller. Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. Assemblywoman Peters. Assemblyman Roberts. Assemblywoman Titus. Assemblywoman Tolles. Assemblyman Watts. Chair Carlton.
And we are all here. Thank you very much. Let's take just a moment to get everybody situated, and then we will begin. So we're just going to take a pause for just a moment here. So just so everyone knows kind of the plan for this evening, since we ended the last meeting with the LCB budget, I plan on taking that up first. That way, Ms. Erdos and her team can get back to work, getting things done for us, and then we can go ahead and get through the subcommittee closings after that. So as soon as Chair Brooks returns, we'll go ahead and take up the LCB budget with the adjustments that we had discussed with Ms. Erdos last Friday. So give us just a moment. Okay, committee, let's go ahead and come together. Have staff passing out the documents that you'll need. And then we'll go, after you get a chance to look at those, I think you'll just see the things that were suggested last Friday. We'll have Ms. Erdos walk us through them very briefly. We had had conversations about everything else. So with that, committee members, I believe everyone has the document. Good evening, Ms. Erdos. Let's take up where we left off on Friday. So you've provided us with a document that deals with the conversation that we had around the audit division and a document that centers around the legal division. So if you would address the audit division first and then the legal, and then we'll go ahead and open it up for questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If it's okay with you, I'd like for Dan Russian to walk you through this really quickly. He's much more able to do that quickly if that's okay with you.
That's good, I know. We got it. Mr. Rushton?
Hello, yes. For the record, this is Dan Russian, Chief Financial Officer of the Legislative Council Bureau. Just very quickly, as you mentioned, there have been two significant changes to the budget data that we presented to you on Friday. For the audit division, we are requesting appropriations to fund 2 additional full-time permanent auditor positions and the related travel, training, and equipment costs for those positions. These positions are needed to ensure that the division is adequately staffed and able to respond to the increased workload resulting from increased federal funding in the next biennium, as well as other additional audits that result from legislative actions. These positions would increase appropriations by approximately $330,000. And then for the legal division, we are requesting appropriations to fund 3 additional full-time permanent positions. One position would be an experienced attorney level position, and the other 2 positions would serve to assist with document preparation duties that include drafting bills, amendments, regulations, and other code revisions. Basically a proofer and a typist position, I believe. These positions would increase appropriations by approximately $720,000. And that was the detail behind those 2 changes from what was presented on Friday. So therefore, we would request that the memo that you see before you is an addendum to the budget closing memo. We would request that the committees approve the appropriations amounts listed in both of those documents, as well as grant LCB management the authority to make any technical adjustments if necessary. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Mr. Rushton. So with that, are there questions from the committee at this time on these particular positions? These were the ones that we had discussed last Friday. Okay, I'm having a little bit of technical difficulty here, so committee, I hate to keep starting and stopping, but we need to pause for just a moment because I've got a glitch I need to deal with. So hold on for just a moment. All right, committee members, so this is actually a portion of the overall budget that we went through. So to remind everyone, this is the full LCB budget. This was just the add-ons that we had from earlier. So this whole budget encompasses the administration division, the audit division, fiscal analysis, legal, and research. We had processed the other two. I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page. So this is budget 2631. So are there any questions or comments on any of the other portions of this particular budget at this time? Not seeing anyone wishing to be recognized. No questions? We're good on the positions? So with that, Senator Brooks?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we accept or we close budget account 3272631 as presented to us last week and as is listed on Nellis under exhibits, in addition with the additions of this current addendum that is the new positions in audit and legal. Also listed as an exhibit on Nellis, and that's the motion.
Okay, I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page. So I have a motion from Senator Brooks, a
I'll second the motion.
second from Ms. Monroe Moreno. I'm flipping through quickly to make sure that I have everything. I thought I might have had the wrong document, but I do have the correct one. Just double checking every page to make sure we don't miss something. Because if you miss it, it's really not a technical adjustment anymore. Right. Right, okay. So everything is listed on Nellis, so I believe we're good. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any in opposition? Hearing no opposition, passes unanimously of all the members present. So with that, thank you very much, Ms. Erdos. Mr. Rushkin, get back to work. We got a lot to do in the next 18 days. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, hold on for just a moment. I thought we had finalized it. So we still do have one left, which was the interim budget, which I am looking for. Which would be 2626. And the chair needs to phone a friend and needs a document, please.
Added positions.
Right, okay. All righty, thank you very much. I am good. I now have a copy of the document. So with that, Ms. Erdos, if we could go ahead and discuss 3272626, please. Mr. Rushton.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Hello. Again, for the record, this is Dan Rushton, Chief Financial Officer, Legislative Council Bureau. Sure. Okay. So regarding the budget account 327-2626, which is used to record the operations of the interim Nevada Legislature, the only changes that we were requesting from the base budget that was submitted earlier in the year, and it was part of the executive budget record, is that there be some position reclassifications, specifically 2 positions in the interim Senate would be reclassified to increase to the next grade from 38 to 39, and then from 37 to 38. And then again, 2 positions in the interim assembly, once again, the same grade changes for there. The total net effect of these changes, position reclassifications, would be about $35,000, which would be added to the total budget for the interim legislature. So that would bring the general fund appropriations for fiscal year 2022 to roughly $950,000, and for fiscal year 2023 to roughly $800,000. Other than that, there were no changes made to the interim legislature's budget.
And thank you very much, Mr. Rushton. So I guess I'm going to ask the question. So we typically don't have this type of staff through the interim, but we realize the workload that we're facing through this next interim. And I believe, if I understand correctly, part of the thought process behind this was just succession planning, because we know that we'll have people kind of coming and going, and also to make sure that we have some cross-training available so that if something would happen and we would not have a person available, that we would have someone else to be able to step in if it was necessary. Am I correct in that on these positions? Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, Madam Chair, I believe that is the explanation for why these are being requested at this time.
Okay, thank you. So with that, committee members, are there any questions or comments on these particular positions? And the document is on Nellis, so it should be up and available to folks. It was posted Friday also, but since had rolled it to today, it is up on Nellis also now to make sure that the public has the document available. So are there any questions or comments from the committee members? This is a little bit different than what we have done in the past. I want to make sure folks get an opportunity to ask any questions. Okay, not seeing anyone wishing to be recognized, so Senator Brooks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we close Budget 2626, and as indicated by Legislative Council Bureau staff this evening.
I have a motion from Senator Brooks,
I'll second the motion.
a second from Ms. Monroe Moreno. Any questions or comments on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any in opposition? Hearing no opposition, passes unanimously of all the members present. Thank you very much. And committee, I apologize for the disjointedness of it all, but we got through it, so that part's done. Now, Ms. Erdos and Mr. Rushton, please go do the things that you do to get us out of here by May the 31st. Thank you very much. And with that, committee members, we'll hold for just a second for staff to pass out our next closing documents, committee reports. All right. So with that, Mr. Leisure, good evening. I believe we have the K-12 higher ed bond interest and capital improvement program up first. Is that correct?
That's correct, Madam Chair.
All righty, let's go. Let's do it.
For the record, Brody Lizer, Fiscal Analysis Division. I'll be presenting the Joint Subcommittee on K-12 Higher Education, CIP's closing report for the Office of the Treasurer Bond Interest and Redemption Account and the 2021 Capital Improvement Program. The Joint Subcommittee on K-12 Higher Education, CIP, has completed its review of the State Treasurer's Bond Interest and Redemption Budget and the 2021 Capital Improvement Program and has made the following recommendations for the 2021-23 biennium. For the Bond Interest and Redemption Account, the subcommittee recommended to approve the budget as recommended by the governor with technical adjustments to align property tax revenue authority with projected collections to fund a transfer of unobligated reserved interest earnings to the newly established State Infrastructure Bank budget in the Nevada Department of Transportation for the bank's operation costs, and with authority for fiscal staff to make technical adjustments as necessary. Regarding the 2021 Department of Conservation and Natural Resources bond programs, as recommended by the governor, the subcommittee recommended $44 million in state general obligation bonds to support 4 resource protection programs, including $20 million for the conservation bond program established through the passage of AB 84 from the 2019 legislative session, $12 million for the Lake Tahoe Environmental Improvement Program, $4 million for the Cultural Centers and Historic Preservation Grant Program, and $8 million for the Water Infrastructure Grant Program. For the 2021 Capital Improvement Program, the subcommittee recommended total funding of $481,722,175, including state general obligation bond funding totaling $365,453,787 to support a total of 89 projects in the 2021 Capital Improvement Program and to fund the State Infrastructure Bank as follows. $173,932,000. Let me try that again. $173,932,090 in funding for 12 construction projects. $180,415,011 in funding for 55 maintenance projects. $6,170,103 in funding for 7 economic development projects. $17,285,009 in funding for 6 planning projects. $28,919,962 in funding for 9 statewide projects, and $75 million to launch the State Infrastructure Bank. The following describes the notable construction projects recommended for approval by the subcommittee. The subcommittee recommended to approve $73.7 million, consisting of a 50-50 split of $36.8 million in state general obligation bonds and $36.8 million in university funds for CIP Project 21C05 to fund construction of a new 52,000 square foot engineering, academic, and research building at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. The subcommittee recommended to approve CIP Project 21C03 for a 55,000 square foot addition at the Washoe County Training Center for the Nevada Army National Guard, as recommended by the governor, funding the project with $26.1 million in state general obligation bonds and $20 million in federal funds. The subcommittee recommended to approve a total of $23.4 million to fund 2 dam rehabilitation projects, as recommended by the governor, including $13.9 million for CIP Project 21C06, the Hobart Reservoir Dam rehabilitation of the Marlette Lake water system, and $9.5 million for CIP Project 21C04 for the Cave Creek Dam rehabilitation at the Cave Lake State Park. The subcommittee recommended to approve CIP Project 21C12 for a welding lab addition and renovation at the Great Basin College, as recommended by the governor, funding total project costs of $6.3 million with $5.7 million in state general obligation bonds and $600,000 in college funds. The subcommittee did not approve the following projects recommended by the governor: 21C02, or Southern Nevada Fleet Services Maintenance Building, the Grant Sawyer site; 21M14, or Data Center Facility Site Upgrades at Enterprise IT Services; and 21M44, or Computer Room Cooling System Upgrade at the State Computer Facility. All 3 projects were recommended to be funded through the issuance of bonds with debt service to be repaid through the agency budgets. As the budgets did not account for the anticipated debt service to begin repaying the bonds in the 2021 to 23 biennium, the projects were not recommended for approval. With maintenance project 21M02, the governor recommended and the subcommittee approved a new policy approach to provide total funding of $27.1 million in state general obligation bonds for a single consolidated maintenance project approach for the Department of Health and Human Services, allowing the State Public Works Division the flexibility to address various maintenance needs of the agency through the ability to utilize savings from identified Priority 1 projects to fund one or more of the Priority 2 projects as identified in the CIP book, or emergent projects that arise. In prior biennia CIPs, each Department of Health and Human Services maintenance project was approved separately with a restricted ability to transfer or redirect savings to other Department of Health and Human Services projects. In approving the new project policy approach, the subcommittee recommended the issuance of a letter of intent directing the State Public Works Division to report to the Interim Finance Committee on a quarterly basis, summarizing the status of approved Priority 1 projects, identification of any savings realized by the projects, and identification when savings from Priority 1 projects were expended on either Priority 2 projects or emergency projects. The subcommittee recommended approval of the governor's recommendation to approve $6.2 million, consisting of $3.8 million in federal funds and $2.3 million under an economic development project type to support 7 military projects that, by providing a state match, will allow the state to bring in available federal funds for support of these projects. The subcommittee recommended to approve the following larger planning projects as recommended by the governor: 21P01, advanced planning for the Grant Sawyer office building remodel with $4.9 million in state general obligation bonds; 21P03, for advanced planning, remodel, and addition, the Southern Nevada Veterans Home with $4.2 million, including $2.6 million in federal funds and $1.6 million in state general obligation bonds; and 21P05, advanced planning, general instructional building, the Floyd Edsel Training Center with $5.5 million, including $4 million in federal funds and $1.4 million in state general obligation bonds. In regards to project 21P06, for advanced planning, Department of Motor Vehicles, Silverado Ranch facility in Las Vegas. The subcommittee deferred its recommendation on approval of the governor's recommendation of $6.3 million in highway funds to complete design development through construction documents for a new full-service Department of Motor Vehicles facility, including commercial driver's license services on Silverado Ranch Boulevard and Valley View Boulevard in Las Vegas. There was discussion during the hearing in regard to the impacts from semi-truck and trailer traffic at the proposed location, given the residential nature of the area, including whether a traffic study had been completed. The State Public Works Division confirmed that impact studies would be within the scope of the planning project recommended, and the Department of Motor Vehicles indicated that the design would utilize the lessons learned from the newly constructed South Reno facility, where similar concerns had been raised for incorporation into this project, if approved. Additionally, there was discussion around the intent to close the existing Donovan CDL Express facility and Henderson facility if this project was funded for construction in a future biennium. So, Madam Chair, there's on page 6 of your closing packet, there's a decision for the full money committees. Do the committees wish to approve CIP Project 21P06 Advanced Planning for the Department of Motor Vehicles Silverado Ranch Facility, Las Vegas, with $6.3 million in highway funds?
Thank you very much, Mr. Leiser. So I think my experience in the legislature has been, the old Mark Twain saying, whiskeys for drinking, waters for fighting, and locating a DMV that no two people ever agree. So with that, had to make it a little light. It's best I could come up with at the last minute. Don't put that on my tombstone. Okay, so DMVs are always, placing DMVs are always, everyone has a thought. Let's just put it that way. So I'll share my thought to start, and then we'll go from there. So I understand wanting to have a new DMV in the South. I think that's a great idea. I see where it's going to be located. I think it will serve the south end of Clark County very well. I have concerns with moving the commercial side, closing the Donovan, the truck commercial side, and moving that to the south. I see all that truck traffic going in one direction, and we've had that bit of a problem in the north with it. So that's one of the concerns that I have. So, Mr. Leiser, I'm going to sideswipe you, and I'll apologize later for doing this. But is there anything that stops us from having two commercial divisions? Can we have one in the north that deals with truck traffic in the north? And can we go ahead and have one in the south that's associated with this new building? Do we necessarily have to close the one to have the other? And I really am sorry for not asking you about this earlier.
Madam Chair, thank you for the question. Brody Leiser, Fiscal Analysis Division. Regarding, during the hearing in regards to the potential for the department to keep the Donovan and/or the Henderson location open and operating, the concern that was testified to by the department was the ability to operate this new facility if it's constructed and still operate the Donovan and/or the Henderson facility while maintaining or keeping under the 22% cap with regard to their highway fund expenditures. And so that was the concern. So I don't believe that there would be anything that would prohibit the department from operating two CDL facilities other than financial constraints. But I see Director Butler is on the screen, and if I got something wrong, I'm sure someone will correct me.
And thank you, Mr. Leiser, and for going over that. It's the thought process isn't in keeping the Henderson DMV. I understand the change in that. I was just wondering if it was the commercial if the two commercials, where that would put us with the cap. And I'm just trying to find a happy medium for a lot of folks who have different opinions on this. So we're just trying to investigate it. So good evening, Ms. Butler. Thank you for being here. I think you heard the conversation. So if we kept the Northern Donovan facility open and had a facility in the south to give our truck drivers two options, do you have any information on where that would put you with your cap?
I don't, unfortunately, because I'm just hearing that for the first time tonight. If we're so, do I understand your question of having a CDL in both locations, the one in South at the Silverado Ranch and Valley View property, and keeping Donovan, or are you talking about strictly constructing the new facility to be non-commercial and keeping Donovan as the only commercial facility in the Vegas Valley?
And thank you, Ms. Butler. The conversation was having the new facility be CDL also, and still keeping our current CDL to help alleviate some of the stress that you shared with us that was on it, in order to be able to address that. We know truck traffic is what it is, and being able to have, instead of just one in the whole Clark County, actually have two facilities that could deal with the CDL portion. And I apologize, I'm just trying to find a happy medium amongst a number of folks who have some concerns about the only CDL being in the far south side of the valley.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the record, Julie Butler. So I don't, this is the first I've heard of that suggestion. I can have staff crunch some numbers first thing in the morning and report that back to you if that would be okay. Let's see, our cap calculation, trying to find where that is quickly. And of course, I can't find it quickly because I'm in the middle of my meeting. So I do believe we would be fine with our cap. I think we were around the 22 or 23% mark or threshold, and depending on where we are with our technology fee bill, can go up to 27%, and I believe we're well within that. So I think if the committee wanted to entertain two locations, I think we would be within the cap calculation to be able to do that. Would want to confirm that, though, with our budget staff and LCB fiscal staff.
Okay, thank you. So committee members, I'd like to open it up to other members for their questions and concerns. And again, I apologize to staff and Ms. Butler. I'm just trying to help everyone who has a position on this, because it does affect a number of folks in a number of different districts. So just trying to find a happy medium. And I've always thought it seemed a little crazy that we just had one place in all of Clark County that did CDL. So with that, committee members, other questions? Ms. Monroe Moreno.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I understand the need to have more than one location for the CDL. My concern are probably twofold. Where the Donovan location is a more industrial location, there's no residential around it. I understand that you are landlocked, but there's absolutely no residential around it. It's easy access right off the 15 and Craig Road onto Donovan. Where the proposed site at the south end of town off of Silverado is in an area that is not built out. It's only a 2-lane now, near residential, that's growing residential in that area. And having the trucks in that area is problematic for me. And do we know when the infrastructure needed to make that 2-lane road a 4-lane road, when that's going to happen?
Julie Butler, DMV Director, for the record. I don't, my understanding is that State Public Works staff had conversations with Clark County Public Works, and the plan is for the Silverado Boulevard to become 3 lanes in each direction, and for Valley View to become 2 lanes in each direction. And as part of this overall effort, a traffic study would be conducted to make sure that those concerns could be alleviated. In addition, I would like to point out that at our current Donovan facility, we only conduct 11 drive skills tests per day. And that is a function of the number of staff that we have at that facility. Under the governor's recommended proposal, we were proposing to close Donovan and transfer those staff to the new location at Silverado Ranch. So we're only talking about 11 tractor trailer trucks per day in terms of the skill test. We're not talking about a terrific volume of trucks in a residential area. Further, with the location, the proposed location, the trucks would be turning into the DMV before they got to the residential area that is just past the proposed location. So we really believe with a combination of the traffic study and working with the county in terms of placement of traffic signals and signage, we could alleviate a lot of those concerns. Further, the location at Donovan and Craig Road, we do get complaints from truckers that it is not easy to access. Depending on which direction you're coming from, you have to make a U-turn to get onto the road to access the Donovan facility. Additionally, it needs some refurbishments in terms of a new storefront and new bathrooms or bathroom remodels. And a staff break area, and so if it were the desire of this body to keep both facilities, we would need to make some improvements to the existing Donovan facility. And Ward, do you have any additional information in terms of timing on the roads and improvements, since it was actually your staff that spoke with Clark County Public Works?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ward Patrick for the record, State Public Works Division. We inquired the who, what, when, where, and why on that project. And the information that we got is that there's no active permits for that to be, those improvements to be made. Although we did confirm that there is the plans to make as the Director Butler stated, 3-lane in each direction on Silverado Ranch, and 2 lanes in each direction on Valley View in that area. And there will be a 2-lane turning lane going off of Silverado Ranch into Valley View. But again, we do not know the timing of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I believe Senator Dondero Loop, you had your hand raised.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Just as a point of reference, I literally just this weekend had somebody reach out to me that went to the Donovan trucking facility and told me it was extremely hard to get into, and they need to wait now a month to do whatever they need to do for this company. And so it's just a point of reference to add to the information. It was just coincidence that somebody had reached out and told me that story. So I don't know how much actual trucking, Ms. Butler said 11 per day, but I don't know if we could access more if we had 2 facilities or what it would be. But this person did say that the facility was extremely hard to get in and out of.
Thank you, Senator. So, Ms. Gorlow, you had a question?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And thank you so much, Director Butler, for speaking with me earlier today about this proposal. I'm very familiar with the area, and as I've mentioned previously, I think the road is something that really needs to be done before or during the project rather than waiting till after. But I had another question regarding the trucks and how they would get into the facility. Pretending that they're coming from the 15 and they're going westbound on Silverado Ranch, would they turn southbound into the facility, or would they go to Valley View and turn southbound from there to then turn into the facility, or would they actually do a little side road? And it looks like there's 2 side roads, a LeBaron and Landberg. are in that area. So offhand, do you happen to know how they would get into the facility?
Julie Butler, for the record, through you, Madam Chair, to Assemblywoman Gorlo. I think that would actually come out in the traffic study and in the design, and part of that would be, again, to mitigate this body's concerns with where that traffic would be coming in. I think that decision would probably be made after the traffic study would be conducted.
Okay, thank you.
I have Senator Ratty, or no, Senator Kickover?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A reference was made to the new DMV in South Reno, and that's in my district. It's about a half mile from my house, and I had a lot of concerns as this was being planned. Traffic concerns. It's right by an elementary school. It's transitional between some warehousing and some commercial and residential. And I'll say that it's turned out darn well, better than I had anticipated. I think the biggest problem I've had so far is that the governor exposed me to COVID at the ribbon cutting. But I haven't gotten any complaints from any of the constituents in the district yet. And the facility seems to be working pretty well. They designed the ingress and egress to accommodate the CDL to the point where it hasn't been an issue. So it's not my neighborhood and it's not my district, so I'm going to defer to those members in the South on how they want to proceed, but that's been my experience. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Howdigy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this is in the center of my district, right in the heart of my district, Director Butler. And I do want to thank you for taking the time to speak with me this afternoon. And a couple of questions came up after we talked and you shared the map. I noticed looking at the map that you sent that there is going to be a lot of other Clark County centers around this area. And I wanted to see if by any chance you knew, because directly south of where the proposed DMV is a lot that has already been leased by Clark County Parks. And then south of that, there is a lot that's a Clark County School District lot. So do we know, will these be an actual park that's right next to the DMV where children might be playing? And also with the CCSD lot, do we know what kind of facility that's going to be? Is that going to be a school?
Madam Chair, to you, Julie Butler, for the record, to Ms. Howdigy. I do not know. Perhaps Charlie Donahue, Administrator of the State Lands Division, might have some clarity on that, and I would defer to him.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Charlie Donahue, for the record, Administrator, Division of State Lands. I think the map that Assemblywoman Howdigy is referring to was generated out of my office. I think one of the critical things about the reference here is that that the local entities, whether it's Metro, Clark County Sheriff's Office in this general area, RTC, or Parks, have secured the lease under the RMPP Public Purpose Act. And for them to go to patent and move forward with development, they have to do exactly what Director Butler is asking for, is this advanced planning. So I think it's a little premature to say what Clark County has fully vetted out in terms of that park south of the hopefully future DMV facility.
Okay, thank you, and thank you, Chair. I think I'm with Ms. Gorlo that I would like to see the widening of Silverado happen either before or after. I mean, I've driven that street many times, having lived off that street, and when you're heading west, there's a portion where it narrows down from a 2-lane into just a 1-lane and heading west, and it's already very dangerous because there's people who are driving west on Silverado Ranch thinking that they can continue to go straight, then they're forced to turn right, and many of them start merging into the left lane as it narrows down into that 1 lane. Past Valley View. So I think it's just already concerning to me, the traffic that goes through that street. And then if we have this DMV built here in the future without having that widening occur, it's going to be very concerning to me. So thank you.
And thank you, Ms. Howdigy, but in hearing Director Butler, that's what the traffic study will, before they're allowed to proceed, that traffic study has to happen, and I'm hoping all those, and I do remember Senator Kickover us having a lot of those discussions about the Reno DMV in the same way, the traffic study and making sure that there was access to the property. So, Assemblywoman Tolles.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for this discussion. If you could refresh my memory, because I know we talked a little bit about the caps, and if I remember correctly, maybe I won't even try. If you could refresh my memory about where we are in existing statute with the caps, and I believe there was a bill forthcoming that would permanently increase the cap to 27%, but that hasn't been processed yet. I know that there's just been concerns about continuing to push up to that upper limit of that cap. If you could just refresh my memory, I'd appreciate it.
Julie Butler for the record, through you, Madam Chair, to Assemblywoman Tolles. So current statute allows the DMV only up to 22% of highway fund appropriations for the administrative support of the DMV, because obviously we want most of the highway fund to go to be built for roads, right? And not necessarily to fund DMVs. So I have just pulled up our administrative cap calculation, and assuming that we do not collect technology fee revenue for the 22-23 biennium, we are currently at just over 18% for fiscal year 2022 and just at 20.3% for fiscal year 2023. Our statutory cap is 22%. The Assemblywoman is correct in that we had proposed a budget bill draft request to allow the department to continue to collect the technology fee while simultaneously allowing us to collect up to 27% for the 22-23 biennium. That bill has not yet dropped, so we're not sure where that would be. If we were allowed to do the 27% cap, we would have plenty of funds to operate facilities in both locations, Donovan and the Silverado Ranch. Our variance from the cap in 2022 at 27% would be about $33.5 million, and in fiscal year 2023 would be $26.3 million. Again, at that 27% level. If we stay at the 22% level, we've got $14 million to play with in 2022 and $6.6 million to play with in 2023. So I think it could probably fund the staff, and that would be the issue at two locations, is I would need an additional contingent of staff to be able to staff both locations, plus the cosmetic renovations that I mentioned before at Donovan. And I hope that answers your question.
Any other questions from committee members at this time? So I'm not feeling comfortable with pushing us up against the cap with two of them, even though I think we probably could use two. With the conversation about there just being 11 trucks actually taking the test, I think that gives a little bit better level of comfort. I have 11 semis go up the street behind my back wall in a couple of hours where I live. So knowing that it's not that large, and with the traffic study. So committee members, we've had everyone who's impacted has now had a chance to have those questions asked. A number of folks that have districts near this were not on the subcommittee, so they now had an opportunity to have the conversation. So with that, are there any other questions or comments moving forward from anyone? Ms. Butler, just one final question. So as this moves forward, what is the completion date on this DMV?
Julie Butler for the record. Mr. Patrick can answer that a little better in terms of their timeline, but we would be looking in the following biennium 24-25. And Ward, can I kick that over to you, please?
Yes, Mr. Patrick. So this is just the beginning part. There's going to be another discussion in the future?
Ward Patrick for the record, this is a planning project. So during the next biennium, we'd go through the traffic study and other engineering studies and go to full design with the $6.3 million. Then next session, there would be a proposal of approximately $63 million to complete the construction and construction would start in the fall and take less than 20 months to complete. So we're talking about summer of 2025 for a completion date.
Thank you very much, Mr. Patrick. That puts another light on it. So with that, Ms. Howdigay, did you have a question?
Thank you so much for indulging me for a second time, Chair. I had spoken with Senator Kiefer, and he said that he was very involved with it being in the heart of his district, and I would just like to encourage Director Butler to reach out to him, the districts that will be impacted, because I know that I would like to be involved in that planning as well. Thank you.
Right, committee members, I think having this extra discussion gave some folks a little bit better level of comfort. So with that, not seeing anyone else wishing to be recognized, Senator Brooks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we approve CIP project CIP project 21-P06, advanced planning for the Department of Motor Vehicles Silverado Ranch facility in Las Vegas with $6.3 million in highway funds.
And with that,
I'll second the motion.
and I have a motion from Senator Brooks, a second from Ms. Monroe Moreno. Any other questions on the motion, comments? Seeing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any in opposition? Hearing no opposition, passes unanimously, the members present. Thank you all very much. Sorry we threw you a curve. We were just trying to get everything out there on the table for everyone to have the conversation. Mr. Leiser, if you would go ahead and finish the report, please, and then we'll take a motion for the full report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The subcommittee recommended that fiscal staff include back language in the CIP legislation that would approve 2-year project extensions requested by the State Public Works Division for the following projects. 17C05 for the National Guard Readiness Center, North Las Vegas. 17M04 water supply nitrate treatment at Humboldt Conservation Camp. 17M18 upgrade wastewater treatment facilities at Wells Conservation Camp. 17M23 upgrade transformers, switches, and sub-metering at Stewart Campus. 17M28 for heat exchanger replacement at Ely State Prison. 17M33 domestic water pump house replacement at Wells Conservation Camp. 17M36 replace domestic and fire water main at Stewart Campus. 17M45 complete phone and data network phase 2 at the Stewart Campus. 17M48 plumbing fixture and water control renovations housing units 1 through 5 at Northern Nevada Correctional Center. 17M75 water system improvements at Mason Valley Wildlife Management Area Headquarters. 17P09 advanced planning UNLV College of Engineering Academic and Research Building. 17S02 statewide ADA program. As recommended by the governor, the subcommittee recommended $75 million in bonds to launch the Nevada State Infrastructure Bank established pursuant to Nevada Revised Statutes 408.55069 to provide loans and other financial assistance to various units of state and local government for the development, construction, improvement, operation, and ownership of certain transportation facilities and utility infrastructure. In addition to providing financial assistance for shovel-ready projects, funding in the bank could be used as a match to any federal funding that may be received as part of a federal infrastructure plan. Finally, the subcommittee recommended authority for fiscal staff to make any technical adjustments as necessary.
Right, committee members, are there any questions on the subcommittee report as a whole? Not seeing anyone wishing to be recognized. Senator Brooks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we approve the subcommittee closing report on the Office of the Treasurer Bond Interest and Redemption Account 2021 Capital Improvement Program.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion from Senator Brooks, second from Vice Chair Monroe Moreno. Any other questions or comments on the motion? Senator Kiefer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I continue to have concerns with a couple of significant pieces of the CIP, primarily the economic development projects as a new category. I think that we're pushing to the back burner more needed projects that would help shore up the state's capital infrastructure. Additionally, I think it would be more appropriate to use cash on hand for the state infrastructure bank rather than issuing debt to seed it. I will, however, vote to accept the report. I lost both of those motions in subcommittee. But I continue to have concerns about them. I don't necessarily think that it's the most appropriate use of our funds. Thank you.
And thank you, Senator, and I understand the economic development side of it. It took me a while to wrap my brain around that. That's a term that I believe was used a number of cycles ago. And basically, it means that we're going to be able to pull down a lot of federal money if we ante up. So this is our skin in the game to pull down that money. So it's not as though, I don't believe it's replacing programs. It's allowing us to pull those federal dollars down to get more programs done. And I do share your same concerns with the infrastructure bank. And I'm waiting to see the actual bill draft on that to see where that goes moving forward. But other than that, this is the jobs bill. And thank you for being the statesman that you are. When you make your argument and you lose, you move on. We truly appreciate that. So, any other questions or comments on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any in opposition? Hearing no opposition, passes unanimously of the members present. I believe we can go on to the next subcommittee closing, please. We'll give staff a moment to pass it out. I believe everyone's good. You can proceed, Mr. Leiser.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Brody Leiser, Fiscal Analysis Division. I'll be presenting the Joint Subcommittee on K-12 Higher Education CIP closing report for the Department of Administration, State Public Works Division. The Joint Subcommittee on K-12 Higher Education CIPs has completed its review of the State Public Works Division's budgets and makes the following recommendations for the 2021-23 biennium. The closing recommendations of the subcommittee resulted in a reduction of general fund appropriations of $8,400 in fiscal year 2022. The following comments describe the more significant recommendations of the joint subcommittee. Regarding the engineering and planning budget, the subcommittee recommended approval of Budget Amendment A215941562 to fund a project manager position and a building construction inspector position with $490,491 over the 2021-23 biennium that were otherwise recommended for elimination as a result of efficiency measures in Decision Unit E600. The amendment was recommended for approval to ensure the division had authority for sufficient staffing levels to address the anticipated workload from implementing the 2021 capital improvement program. The subcommittee approved the remainder of the engineering and planning budget as recommended by the governor. Regarding the buildings and grounds budget, the subcommittee concurred with the governor's recommendation to fund deferred maintenance projects totaling $1.8 million over the 21-23 biennium. The subcommittee recommended approval of the remainder of the buildings and grounds budget as recommended by the governor, including technical adjustments and approval of 2 requested amendments to align building rent revenues associated with the new South Reno Department of Motor Vehicles building that came online in the winter of 2020, as well as accounting for the loss of rental revenue from the governor's recommendation to relocate the Department of Taxation and the Cannabis Compliance Board from the Grant Sawyer building to a non-state-owned building. The subcommittee recommends closing the following Department of Administration State Public Works Division budgets as recommended in the executive budget with minor technical adjustments by fiscal staff. The administration budget, account 1540. Facility Condition and Analysis budget account 1560. And the Marlette Lake budget account 1366. The subcommittee authorized fiscal staff to make technical adjustments throughout the division's budgets as necessary.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leiser. Committee members, are there any questions on this closing report? Not seeing anyone wishing to be recognized. Senator Brooks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we accept or approve the subcommittee closing report for the Department of Administration State Public Works Division.
I will second.
I have a motion from Senator Brooks, a second from Vice Chair Monroe Moreno. Questions or comments on the motion? Not seeing any. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And those in opposition? Hearing no opposition, passes unanimously of the members present. I believe we can go ahead and move on to our next item, which will be Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Public and Behavioral Health. We'll wait for that document to be passed out, and then we will begin. All righty, I think everyone's got their documents and have had a chance to glance through them. So, Mr. Sauer, if you'd like to go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair. Christian Tower, Legislative Counsel Bureau, Fiscal Analysis Division, for the record. The Joint Subcommittee on Human Services has completed its review of the Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Public and Behavioral Health, and has made the following recommendations for the division's 21 to 23 biennium budget. The closing recommendations of the subcommittee resulted in general fund appropriation savings of $753,403 in fiscal year 2022 and $332,693 in FY23 when compared to the governor's recommended budget. The following comments describe the most significant recommendations of the subcommittee. It begins with the Nevada Central Cancer Registry, budget account 3153. As recommended by the governor, the subcommittee recommended additional revenues of $231,963 in FY 2022 and $222,999 in FY 2023 for the cancer registry, deriving from an increase of the fee for the registration and renewal application of a radiation machine, mammography machine, healthcare facility, and medical laboratory by 6%. This recommendation was made contingent upon passage and approval of enabling legislation. The subcommittee also recommended expending $198,317 of the increased fee revenues to fund 2 new health program specialist positions in FY 2023, as recommended by the governor, and contingent upon passage and approval of enabling legislation for the fee increase. These measures are to ensure compliance of the cancer registry with federal data reporting standards. Next is the Health Statistics and Planning budget account 3190. The subcommittee recommended approval of the governor's recommendation, as adjusted, of the use of $1.3 million in reserve funds in FY 2023 for an upgrade of the cloud-based vital record system for efficiency gains and data security. As recommended by the governor, the subcommittee recommended the allocation of $43,551 in additional fee revenues over the 21 to 23 biennium for the reclassification of 5 Administrative 1 to 5 Administrative 2 positions, contingent upon the approval of the reclassification by the Division of Human Resources Management. Next is the Environmental Health Services budget account 3194. To address solvency concerns with this budget, the subcommittee recommended the elimination of 3 positions for an increase of reserve levels by $209,027 in FY22 and $218,380 in FY23, as recommended by the governor. To ensure that the agency will be able to conduct timely food establishment inspections in rural Nevada, while the economy is reopening after coronavirus restrictions, the subcommittee also recommended that the full money committees preliminarily approve restoring the 3 eliminated positions beginning October 2021 with American Rescue Plan coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds authorizations of $156,770 in fiscal year 2022 and $218,380 in FY23. On May 3rd this year, the committees approved this recommendation as part of their decisions on statewide decision units. Immunization program, budget account 3213. The subcommittee recommended the conversion of a federal grant-funded full-time health program officer contract position to a full-time state health program specialist 1 position funded with the same federal grant, and this is as recommended by the governor. The conversion would assist the agency to meet core requirements under the federal grant that funds the position relating to adult and adolescent immunization rates and influenza planning. Next is the Healthcare Facilities Regulation budget account 3216. The subcommittee recommended approval of the governor's recommendation for the creation of a new infectious disease unit with 4 new health program specialist positions at cost of $289,511 in FY22 and $389,046 in FY23. The new unit would be primarily funded with reserve fee funds and allow the agency to adopt a proactive approach to infectious disease prevention. As recommended by the executive budget, the subcommittee also recommended the substitution of general funds for community-based living arrangement inspections and certifications with reserved fee funds for general fund savings totaling $125,060 over the 21 to 23 biennium. Moving on to the biostatistics and epidemiology budget 3219. As recommended by the governor, the subcommittee recommended the transfer of the HIV surveillance program to the communicable diseases budget for efficiency gains, including federal fund authority for 2 permanent positions and program activities totaling $523,580 in FY22 and $521,889 in FY23. The subcommittee also recommended approval of budget amendment A215753219, which adds $58.4 million in Federal Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, epidemiology and laboratory capacity for infectious disease COVID-19 component grant funds in FY22 and $78.3 million in FY23 to support the public health response of Nevada to COVID-19. Next is the chronic disease budget, budget account 3220. As recommended by the governor, the subcommittee recommended $500,000 in general fund appropriations in each year of the 21 to 23 biennium for the continuation of breast cancer early detection services to women ages 40 to 49. The subcommittee also recommended approval of a new funding mix and structure for the state program for oral health. In accordance with the governor's recommendations on this new structure, the state dental health officer position would be included in the Division of Healthcare Financing and Policies Administration budget and be partially funded through Medicaid funds. The contracted part-time state public health dental hygienist at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, would be funded by this budget. The subcommittee recommended the allocation of Fund for Healthy Nevada funds of $92,119 in FY22 in this budget and $92,123 in FY23 to support the contracted position of the state public health dental hygienist as recommended by the governor. Moving on to the maternal, child, and adolescent health service budget, budget account 3222. As recommended in the executive budget, the subcommittee recommended the conversion of 2 contract positions currently funded with a combination of general funds and federal grants to 2 fully federal grant-funded permanent state positions to meet core requirements under the respective federal grants. The conversion would result in general fund reductions of $66,206 in each year of the 21 to 23 biennium as a result of funding the positions entirely with federal grant funds. The subcommittee also recommended federal funds of $79,436 in FY23 for a new early hearing detection and intervention data management system for efficiency gains and as recommended by the governor. Community Health Services budget account 3224. The subcommittee recommended the substitution of general funds with federal grant funds for the purchase of computer replacement equipment, resulting in general fund savings of $46,028 over the 21 to 23 biennium, as recommended by the governor. Moving on to behavioral health budgets. Problem gambling, budget account 3200. The subcommittee recommended the reduction in general fund appropriations of $176,000 relating to problem gambling programs each year of the 21 to 23 biennium, as recommended by the governor. Behavioral health prevention and treatments, budget account 3170. The subcommittee recommended approval of the conversion of 4 federal grant-funded contract positions to 1 federal grant-funded administrative assistant and 3 federal grant-funded health program specialist state positions as recommended by the governor. The converted positions would be tasked with core requirements under the federal grant, such as providing technical assistance to treatment and prevention providers and verifying providers' compliance with funding requirements in state and federal laws and regulations. As recommended in the executive budget, the subcommittee recommended approval of the transfer of the Office of Suicide Prevention to the Behavioral Health Prevention and Treatment budget, including 4 positions in order to align Suicide Prevention Lifeline with the Office of Suicide Prevention's activities. With the transfer of the office, $389,490 in Fund for Health in Nevada funds and $189,536 general fund dollars are transferred to this budget in fiscal year 2022, and $389,490 in Fund for Health in Nevada funds and $197,512 in general funds in FY23. Finally, the subcommittee recommended approval of Budget Amendment A215743170, which adds $12.3 million in federal substance abuse prevention and treatment and community mental health service coronavirus relief funds to this budget in FY22 and $8.7 million in FY23. The funds are to be used to prepare and organize a response to the mental and behavioral health effects of the coronavirus epidemic. Moving on to the rural clinics budget, budget account 3648. The subcommittee recommended approval of the governor's recommendation of general fund reductions of $1.2 million over the 21 to 23 biennium, with reductions in contract expenditure authority of $972,642 based on prior year actual expenditures and an offsetting increase in Medicaid reimbursements of $237,922 over the biennium to support computer and equipment replacements. Moving on to Northern Nevada Adult Mental Health Services, budget account 3162. The subcommittee recommended approval of the governor's recommendation to reduce general fund appropriations for the community-based living arrangement program by $389,399 in FY22. The reduction in funding would not result in any actual service reduction, given the decrease in caseloads in the program over the past biennium, which is due to fewer community-based living arrangement homes in Northern Nevada. The subcommittee also considered recommendations concerning outpatient caseload-driven staff allocations. The executive budget recommended general fund reductions of $1.1 million over the 21 to 23 biennium, resulting from the elimination of 5 positions, 4.02 full-time equivalent positions, as a result of projected decreases in caseloads in the medication clinic. However, during and directly after the March 16, 2021 budget hearing, the agency indicated the need for a thorough revision of the caseload analysis that informed the recommendations in the executive budget. According to the agency, caseload data for some outpatient programs had not been reported correctly in the past concerning approved staff-patient ratios, with the effect that some programs were effectively overstaffed and others understaffed. On March 29th of this year, the agency transmitted the updated data, which included January and February 21 caseloads for Northern and Southern Nevada Adult Mental Health Services outpatient programs. The update also disaggregated certain outpatient programs and included a variance in staff-patient ratios when compared to supporting documentation submitted with the executive budget, and also a different information on budgeted staffing levels in some programs. Based on the updated and revised caseload analysis, the subcommittee recommended the elimination of a total of 6 positions, which is the equivalent of 5.02 full-time equivalent positions, as summarized in the table on page 8. And you see in the left-hand column the executive budget recommendation, and on the more right-hand column, the recommendation based on the caseload update. In recommending these actions, which result in a net reduction of $60,397 compared to the $1.1 million in general fund appropriations recommended for reduction in the executive budget, the subcommittee expressed its desire for fiscal staff to review the recommended position eliminations for consideration during the full committee closing today, to ensure that equivalent staff-patient ratios are applied throughout Northern and Southern Nevada adult mental health services programs. The review confirmed the validity of the recommendations in the M202 and M203 decision units based on the updated March information. However, the review found that staff-patient ratios in the updated caseload data as of March 21 for the medication clinic, so concerning decision unit M201 of Northern Nevada Adult Mental Health Services, deviate from those for the South and from those identified in supporting documentation submitted with the executive budget. The following table summarizes staff-patient ratios, projected average caseloads, budgeted positions, and resulting recommended position eliminations in the medication clinics, as reflected in, first, the executive budget, second, the subcommittee's closing recommendation, and there's a third option, an option provided by staff to apply staffing ratios consistently to the Northern and Southern medication clinics based on the staffing ratios as identified in supporting documentation submitted in the executive budget. The third option is presented as a decision before the joint full committee. It is based on the same staff-patient ratio as identified in supporting documentation submitted with the executive budget and applies consistent standards to the medication clinics at Northern and Southern Nevada Adult Mental Health Services concerning psychiatric nurses with a staff-client ratio of 1 staff per each 175 patients, and senior psychiatrists/mid-level practitioners with a staff-patient ratio of 1 staff per each 315 patients. Applying the consistent staffing ratios would support the restoration of 1.0 psychiatric nurse FTE positions and 1.0 mid-level practitioner positions in FY23, which would result in a net $90,098 general fund reduction dollars when compared to the executive budget. Due to the uncertainty regarding appropriate staff-client ratios and projected caseloads as coronavirus-related restrictions are lifted, the committees may wish to consider directing the division to review and update its behavioral health staff-client ratios and caseload projections during the 21 to 22 interim. Given the inconsistency in the information provided, fiscal staff would offer the following actions relating to caseload in this budget to align staffing levels with projected caseloads and to consider the application of a consistent staffing patient ratio between Northern Nevada Adult Mental Health Services and Southern Nevada Adult Mental Health Services. First, the committees may wish to consider approving decision unit M201 as recommended by the governor to eliminate 5 4.02 FTE positions in the medication clinic beginning in FY22, including 3 2.02 FTE psychiatric nurses and 2 mid-level practitioner positions for general fund reduction of $1.1 million over the 21 to 23 biennium. In addition, the committees may wish to approve the subcommittee's recommendation for the elimination of 1 psychologist position in the outpatient counseling program and 1 psychiatric caseworker in the service coordination program in decision units M202 and M203 for additional general fund reductions of $350,332 over the 21 to 23 biennium. These actions would reflect the updated caseload trends as of March 21 for fiscal year 22, irrespective of staff-client ratios. Second, the committees may wish to consider restoring 2 positions to the medication clinic in FY23 to ensure consistent and sufficient staff-client ratios, including 1 psychiatric nurse position and 1 mid-level practitioner position, resulting in an increase in federal general fund appropriations in FY23 of $260,234 when compared to fiscal year 2022. Additionally, the committees may wish to consider issuing a letter of intent to the agency to revise and validate staff-client ratios as well as budgeted positions during the 21 to 22 interim. And Chair, on page 12, there is a quite lengthy decision before the joint committees. Do the committees wish to approve the elimination of 5 positions, including 3 psychiatric nurses and 2 senior psychiatrist mid-level practitioner positions in the medication clinic beginning in FY22 and as recommended by the governor for general fund savings of $1.1 million over the 21 to 23 biennium? And do the committees also wish to approve the elimination of 1 psychologist position in the outpatient counseling program and 1 psychiatric caseworker position in the service coordination program beginning in FY22 based on the March 21 revised caseload data, resulting in additional general fund reduction of $350,332 over the 21 to 23 biennium, for total general fund savings of $1.4 million over the biennium. That is for FY22. Additionally, do the committees wish to restore 1 psychiatric nurse and 1 senior psychiatrist mid-level practitioner position to the medication clinic in FY23 to apply consistent staffing ratios at Northern and Southern Nevada Adult Mental Health Services, resulting in an increase of $260,234 in general fund appropriations in fiscal year 23. If the committees wish to approve the addition of $260,234 in general fund appropriations to fund the restoration of the 2 positions in FY23, the committees may wish to appropriate the funding to the Interim Finance Committee, whereupon the division could request an allocation upon demonstration of actual caseload need and based on an update of the agency's caseload analysis justifying the position. As part of this consideration, fiscal staff would recommend the issuance of a letter of intent requiring the agency to revise and validate staff-client ratios and staffing levels division-wide to be applied in a consistent manner in its future budgeting for position needs. Fiscal staff would also recommend to require this analysis, this letter of intent-based analysis, to be included as part of the agency's request to access funds from the contingency account in FY23 and as part of the agency requested 23 to 25 forthcoming biennium budget.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tower. That was a lot of information. We'll pause right here. I'll be happy to go to the 2 subcommittee chairs who worked very, very hard on this. I've learned how to delegate, so this is one of those times, but I believe staff has come up with some excellent conversation pieces here and recommendations to make sure that we do get the caseload numbers that we need, and we can make decisions based on data and what the true impact would be. So, Senator Ratty, any comments?
Yeah, I'm happy to comment, and I appreciate the explanation, which was challenging, and I'm sure if you weren't on the subcommittee, a little difficult to follow. So, I guess our apologies to everybody, or you should congratulate us for trying to think it through. So here's what I would say. So I like the recommendation, including the restoration of the 2 positions based on the letter of intent and the contingency option. What I will say is that I think that DHHS and
Department of Public and Behavioral Health in particular, has been very responsible and cautious with their budgeting, given the fiscal conditions that the state has been in. And so I would just want to put a little star on this one, just like we've put a little star on a number of things that I would want to take one more look at it now that the financial picture may be looking better, to make sure that we aren't doing drastic cuts to behavioral health services in particular at this time, knowing that we are going to have a behavioral health pandemic on the tail of our public health pandemic, and that it was very challenging for the agencies to try to figure out caseload when caseload has been down because of access to services being down, and a little difficult to tell what's coming based on the behavioral health impacts of the pandemic. So I think we have not very long, but a few more days to take one more hard look at it to make sure that we're not doing more harm than is necessary, but would generally be comfortable with the recommendation as outlined here today. So I hope that helps.
Thank you, Senator Ratty. Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno is the Assembly Subcommittee Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I would say ditto to a lot of the comments made by my co-chair, Senator Ratty from the Senate. This had a lot of discussion during our subcommittee meetings. We had a lot of painful discussions through our subcommittee meetings. However, with the information brought to us from DHHS with their caseloads, we do understand that those caseloads may increase as we come out of this pandemic. We understand the financial situation the state is in right now, and those things may change momentarily. Things are changing in this building weekly, as we all know. However, what you see before you is, I guess, what I could term a quote-unquote happy medium to get us where we need to be as a state and give the department what they need, the tools to help their clientele with the current caseloads.
Thank you very much. So committee members, are there any other questions or comments? I know there's a lot of little stars out there, and I know there's a lot of little blue stickies in different places marking things for all of us, but that's not a conversation for tonight. That's a conversation for the future once we get a better feel for where we actually are. So, not hearing anything else, I believe the proposal that is on page 12 of our document is very well put together and has the accountability measures and the being able to make sure that we get all the data that we need. So, Senator Brooks, you don't have to read this whole thing. You
Thank
can
you,
just
Madam
note
Chair.
the page.
I move that we approve the decisions laid out for us, including the letter of intent laid out for us on page 12 of our closing subcommittee closing report.
I will second the motion.
I have a motion from Senator Brooks, a second from Ms. Monroe Moreno to process the full litany of what is on page 12. Any other questions or comments on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any in opposition? Hearing no opposition, passes unanimously. So with that, Mr. Tower, I think we can go to Southern Nevada Adult Mental Health Services is next.
Thank you, Chair. Christian Tower, Fiscal Analysis Division for the record. The subcommittee recommended approval, and I'm now at Southern Nevada Adult Mental Health Services, budget account 3161, for the elimination of business office space at the agency's West Charlton Boulevard location in Las Vegas for general fund savings of $76,871 in fiscal year 2022 and $78,987 in FY23. The understanding is thereby that the office space elimination will not affect direct service delivery. Concerning the governor's caseload-driven staffing recommendations, the subcommittee made recommendations based on revised and updated caseload data as of March 21, not related to the medication clinic, and as reflected in the table before the committees on page 13. And again, you find on the left-hand column the executive budget's recommendation, and on the more right-hand column the recommendations based on the updated data concerning caseloads. The recommendation result in an increase in the subcommittee's recommendation result in an increase in general fund appropriations compared to the executive budget of $566,377 over the 21 to 23 biennium. Concerning the medication clinic, so decision unit M205, which was not included in the executive budget, the subcommittee deferred any recommendations and asked fiscal staff to review the respective caseload analysis for consideration during the full committee closing today to ensure that equivalent staff-patient standards are being applied consistently across Northern and Southern Nevada adult mental health services programs. As previously mentioned, on March 29, 21, the agency transmitted updated data, which included January and February 2021 caseloads for Northern and Southern Nevada adult mental health services outpatient programs. As noted previously with respect to the medication clinic at Northern Nevada adult mental health services, the appropriate staff-client ratio for this caseload projection appears unclear. Based on a staff-client ratio of 1 psychiatric nurse per 175 clients, and 1 senior psychiatrist for each 315 clients, as reflected in supporting documentation submitted with the executive budget, the medication clinic would need 4 additional positions at a projected cost of $580,690, funded with general fund appropriations in FY 2023, including 3.0 psychiatric nurse FTE positions and 1.0 senior psychiatrist position. Depending on the committee's decision on staffing the medication clinic at Northern Nevada Adult Mental Health Services, the committees may wish to allocate funding to the Interim Finance Committee, contingent upon the agency completing a review and update of its caseload analysis and demonstrating a need given the lack of clarity concerning staff-client ratios and the uncertainty regarding future caseload developments after coronavirus restrictions are lifted. And there's a decision before the committees outlined on page 15, this time slightly shorter. Do the committees wish to approve the subcommittee's recommendation to approve the addition of 3.0 FTE psychiatric nurses and 1.0 FTE senior psychiatrist for the medication clinic program, resulting in $580,690 in general fund appropriations in fiscal year 2023. If the committees approve the addition of $580,690 in general fund appropriations to fund the 4 new positions, the committees may wish to appropriate the funding to the Interim Finance Committee, whereupon the division could request an allocation upon demonstration of actual caseload need and based on an update of the agency's caseload analysis justifying the positions.
Thank you, Mr. Tower. So with that one, we're down to 2 medium-sized paragraphs for our decision point this time, which is very good. This time I'll go to Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno first, and then to Senator Ratty as the 2 chairs of the subcommittee on this issue. Assemblywoman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So once again, a huge kudos to our fiscal staff for the work that they have done on both of these decision units, and to DHHS. Again, we're in the position of looking at caseload numbers, and the decision unit you see before us reflects that. Realizing that cutting positions as we come out of the pandemic, this medical pandemic, we may have the behavioral health care issues. Placing that, the funds in appropriate funding for IFC, where if they find the need as their caseload increases, they could come to IFC to address that by adding staff. We felt that was the most responsible decision, looking at the financial situation the state was in at the time that we had this hearing.
Thank you, Ms. Monroe Moreno. Senator Reddy, any comments?
Just to add that it seemed to make logical sense that we would align how the how the caseload projections are calculated similarly across the facilities. And so that, I think, is reflected here.
Okay, so with that, committee members, are there any questions on this item? Not seeing any questions, Senator Brooks, I would accept a motion that would refer to the proposals in the gray box on the top of page 15.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we approve the decisions as indicated on page 15.
I will second the motion.
Thank you. I have a motion from Senator Brooks, a second from Ms. Monroe Moreno. Any questions or comments on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Hearing no opposition, passes unanimously. Mr. Thauer, if you'd like to go ahead and finish up, and then we'll take a motion to accept the full committee report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Christian Thauer for the record. The subcommittee recommends closing the following Division of Public and Behavioral Health budgets as recommended in the executive budget. Radiation control budget account 31001. The child care services budget 3149. Low-level radioactive waste fund budget, 3152. The WIC food supplement budget, 3214. The communicable diseases budget, 3215. The healthcare facilities administrative penalty budget account 3217. Public health preparedness program budget, 3218. Office of Health Administration, budget account 3223. The Emergency Medical Services budget account 3235. The Marijuana Health Registry budget account 4547. The Behavioral Health Administration budget account 3168. The Alcohol Tax Program budget account 3255. And the Facility for the Mental Offender budget account 3645. The subcommittee also recommended approving technical adjustments noted by staff and authorized fiscal staff to make other technical adjustments to the Division of Public and Behavioral Health budgets as needed, including any adjustments that would result based on pending legislation as necessary. And that concludes the subcommittee report. Thank you.
Right, committee, thank you. Are there any questions on the report as a whole from any members at this time? Not seeing any. Senator Brooks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we approve the subcommittee closing report on the Department of Health and Human Services Division of Public and Behavioral Health.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion from Senator Brooks, a second from Vice Chair Monroe Moreno. Any questions or comments on the motion? Not seeing anyone. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any in opposition? Hearing no opposition, passes unanimously. Moving on to our next budget, which I believe would be the Division of Parole and Probation. All right, I believe everyone has their documents. We can proceed.
Good evening, Madam Chair. This is Dustin Speed from the Fiscal Analysis Division for the record. This evening, I'll be presenting the subcommittee closing report for the Department of Public Safety Division of Parole and Probation, which is budget account 3740. The Joint Subcommittee on Public Safety, Natural Resources, and Transportation has completed its review of the budget for the Department of Public Safety Division of Parole and Probation for the 2021-23 biennium. The closing recommendations of the subcommittee resulted in reductions in general fund appropriations of $157,568 in fiscal year 2022 and $940,121 in fiscal year 2023, and county reimbursements of $178,709 in fiscal year 2022 and $193,754 in fiscal year 2023. The following comments describe the more significant recommendations of the Joint Subcommittee. The subcommittee recommended net position eliminations of 25 positions in fiscal year 2022 and 20 positions in fiscal year 2023 related to adjustments to caseload in decision units M201, M202, M203, and M204. This results in total funding reductions of $2 million, of which $938,482 is general fund in fiscal year 2022, and $1.5 million, of which $561,169 is general fund in fiscal year 2023. The recommendation reflects the spring 2021 caseload projections prepared by the JFA Institute as recommended by the governor, inclusive of budget amendment A216723740, and technical adjustments to reconcile positions recommended for elimination that do not correspond with the respective positions in the adjusted base budget. Additionally, the subcommittee recommended general fund appropriations of $81,000 in fiscal year 2022 to fund a staffing study related to pre-sentence investigation process and assess the job functions to determine the correct workload ratio of parole and probation specialist for positions as included in budget amendment A216723740. The governor recommended a new supervision model for low-risk offenders that creates supervision pods, each consisting of a DPS sergeant, 2 DPS officer 2 positions, and 4 parole and probation specialists 3 positions, to supervise a caseload of 1,000 offenders that would replace the current structure of a sergeant and 6 DPS officer 2 positions supervising a caseload of 900 offenders. As recommended by the governor and amended by Budget Amendment 8216723740, the subcommittee recommended reductions in general fund appropriations of $799,665 in fiscal year 2022 and $557,564 in fiscal year 2023 to fund the new low-risk supervision model, inclusive of the spring 2021 caseload projections prepared by the JFA Institute, and a technical adjustment to reconcile a position recommended for elimination that does not correspond with the respective position in the adjusted base budget. The subcommittee also recommended general fund appropriations of $228,000 in each fiscal year of the 2021-23 biennium to reestablish funding for the Going Home Prepared program, as recommended by was eliminated in fiscal year 2021 as part of the budget reductions included in Assembly Bill 3 of the 31st special session. As recommended by the governor, the subcommittee recommended general fund appropriations of $1.3 million in fiscal year 2022 and $840,000 in fiscal year 2023 to complete the development and provide for annual license fees for parole and probation's records management system that would replace the offender tracking information system. The funding is in addition to the one-shot general fund appropriation of $2.7 million that the division received for the commercial off-the-shelf solution project through the passage of Senate Bill 515 during the 2019 session, of which $675,449 was reverted to the general fund session. Though the passage of Assembly Bill 3, Section 82D on April 17, 2021, through the passage of Assembly Bill 3, Section 82D, on April 17, 2021, the Governor's Finance Office submitted a request to extend the reversion date of SB 515 from September 17, 2021 to September 16, 2022, due to the COVID-19 pandemic affecting the request for the proposal and the contract implementation for the records management system project. According to the division, the program development is in early phases and a balance of $1.7 million is projected to be remaining at the end of fiscal year 2021. Additionally, fiscal staff would recommend back language in the Appropriations Act to allow for records management system project funds included in the decision unit E350 remaining at the end of fiscal year 2022 to balance forward to fiscal year 2023 to ensure the completion of the project. Do the Senate Committee on Finance and the Assembly Committee on Ways and Means wish to recommend back language in the Appropriations Act to extend the reversion date of Senate Bill 515 of the 2019 legislative session to September 16th, 2022, as requested by the Governor's Finance Office, and allow for records management system project funds appropriated in fiscal year 2022 to balance forward to fiscal year 2023 to ensure the completion of the project?
So with that, committee members, are there any questions or comments? So I see once again, there's a proposal to basically do a bank for P&P. I think this is the third or the fourth time we've done a bank for P&P. So I'll let you guys figure it out next interim, how that actually works out. So any other questions or comments? Seeing none, Senator Brooks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we recommend back language in the Appropriations Act to extend the reversion date of Senate Bill 515 to the 2019 legislative session to September 16th, 2022, as requested by the Governor's Finance Office, and allow for records management system project funds appropriated in FY 2022 to balance forward to FY 2023 to ensure the completion of the project.
I'd second the motion.
I have a motion from Chair Brooks, a second from Ms. Monroe Moreno. Questions or comments on the motion? If this means Otis gets done about the same time I do, I'm all for it. We've only been at it for a while. So with that, not hearing anything else, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any in opposition? Hearing no opposition. Good job. We went back to what we originally thought, an off-the-shelf solution. So with that, we would need a motion to accept the report as a whole, Senator Brooks.
I move that we accept the subcommittee closing report on the Department of Public Safety Division of Parole and Probation.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion from Senator Brooks, a second from Ms. Monroe Moreno. Any other questions on the Division of Parole and Probation report? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any in opposition? Hearing no opposition, passes unanimously of the members present. Moving on to our next report, and I believe our final report for the evening, is the Silver State Health Insurance Exchange. We'll have staff pass that out, and then we'll begin. With that, I believe we are on our last item. So, Mr. Nichols, you're up, I believe. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair and committee members. For the record, this is Colby Nichols, Program Analyst with Fiscal Analysis Division, here tonight to go over the Joint Subcommittee on General Government's closing report for the Silver State Health Insurance Exchange. The Joint Subcommittee on General Government has completed its review of the Silver State Health Insurance Exchange budget request for the 2021-23 biennium, and the following comments describe the more significant recommendations of the Joint Subcommittee. Regarding the exchange's admin account, the subcommittee recommended approving the governor's recommendation to fund increased call center capacity for the federal open enrollment period of November 1st to December 15th, funded with reserve reductions of $83,450 in each year of the 21-23 biennium. In addition, the subcommittee recommended approving increased contract costs to fund additional staffing at the call center for the extended state open enrollment period of December 16th to January 15th, funded with reserve reductions of $381,052 in each year of the 21-23 biennium. These recommendations will allow the exchange to operate the call center at the open enrollment level for the 30 extra days of extended open enrollment at the service level previously approved by the Interim Finance Committee for fiscal year 2021. The subcommittee also recommended approval of the governor's recommendation for 4 new positions for the exchange. These positions include a health resource analyst to staff the agency's operations unit, a business process analyst to staff the security and reconciliation unit, a health program specialist to staff the communications unit, and a program officer to staff the consumer assistance unit. All 4 positions would be funded through reserve reductions totaling $211,255 in fiscal year 22 and $282,517 in fiscal year 23. These positions are recommended to help the agency address increased workload that's associated with the growth of the number of carriers on the exchange, as well as to absorb duties that were previously performed by the agency's federal partners prior to the exchange's transition to the state-based exchange model in fiscal year 2021. Finally, the subcommittee recommended authorization for fiscal staff to make technical adjustments to the Silver State Health Insurance Exchange budget as needed. And that concludes my report of the subcommittee's actions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nichols. Committee members, are there any questions on the Silver State Health Insurance Exchange report? Not seeing anyone wishing to be recognized. Senator Brooks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we accept and approve the subcommittee closing report for the Silver State Health Insurance Exchange.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion from Senator Brooks, a second from Vice Chair Monroe Moreno. Not seeing anyone wishing to be recognized. No questions, no comments. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any in opposition? Hearing no opposition, passes unanimously of the members that are here. Thank you very much, Mr. Nichols. So with that, committee members, I believe that addresses our agenda items for today. The last item we have this evening is to open it up for public comment. We'll give just a moment for those listening in to dial in, tune on, whatever, for public comment, and then we'll go to broadcast services in just a moment. So with that, broadcast services, do we have anyone on the phone line wishing to make public comment this evening before the committee?
Good evening. Thank you, Madam Chair. For callers wishing to provide public comment, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. And we will begin with caller with the last 3 digits of 358. Caller, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Hello, my name is Selena LaRue Hatch, LA_RUE_HATCH. I'm a teacher and member of NSCA and WEA, and I am calling to urge the members in this room to support AJR1. This measure is so long overdue and clearly popular with Nevadans, as evidenced by the thousands of emails, hundreds of protesters, hours of public comment, and overwhelming polling results you have received since its introduction last summer. And of course, it is popular. The mines in Nevada make a fortune from our resources while paying a pittance in taxes to support the state that makes those profits possible. It is time they start paying their fair share in this state, just like the rest of us. We are in a time of crisis, a time which demands sacrifice. Healthcare workers, educators, and essential workers are sacrificing their health and their lives in order to keep our communities safe and functioning. We are asking that mining corporations share in that sacrifice to keep our state healthy. If we can sacrifice our health and our safety, it seems a small ask that mining corporations sacrifice a minuscule portion of their record profits in order to fund the vital community services of education and healthcare. In this state, we are too often quick to cut the most essential community programs, but slow to ask the mega rich to chip in even a small amount. Education cuts are second nature, mining tax is foreign. This is wrong, this is backwards, this is harmful. It is time to abandon these devastating budget balancing measures of the past and seek a new path in which all Nevadans are doing their part to improve our state, in which all of us are sharing in this sacrifice and not just the most vulnerable. I urge you to pass AJR 1. It was easy for this body to vote for devastating cuts to education last summer, to ask educators and children to sacrifice even more in the name of community. Will you be just as quick to ask a multi-billion-dollar industry to chip in a little bit too? I certainly hope so. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we typically don't engage with public comment, but I don't believe describing what this body went through last summer as easy is accurate. So with that, is there another caller?
Thank you. Next caller with the last three digits of 586. Caller, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Carmen Andrews, C-A-R-M-E-N, and then A-N-D-R-E-W-S. I'm a high school Spanish teacher in the CCSD and the vice president of NEA of Southern Nevada. I have come to accept that Nevada just doesn't care about education. How does that make you feel when I say that when you are the ones in charge of funding education? You should feel terrible. I feel terrible. My colleagues feel terrible. We're exhausted. I'm exhausted from begging the state for money to support education for the last 2.5 decades. Teachers are exhausted from having the largest average class sizes in the nation. Support professionals are exhausted from being underpaid and overstretched. Students are tired of not having textbooks and not getting their fair share of a teacher's time. Educators are tired of spending our own money in classrooms to bridge the gap between actual funding and actual need. I'm tired of mincing words. Quit patronizing us and pretending that you care. Decades of words that say you support education at this point mean nothing, absolutely nothing. Actions speak louder than words. Stop pretending that you care. Stop making excuses. Stop protecting corporations. It's time to show us you care. Tax the mind, fund education. Just get it done. Thank you.
Next caller, please.
Next caller with the last three digits of 577. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Chris Daly, D-A-L-Y, Nevada State Education Association. 2 years ago, SB 543 was developed behind closed doors, wasn't introduced until the 99th day of the session, and had but a single public hearing, with the bill passing minutes before sine die. Today, on the 99th day of the session, SB 439 was introduced with less fanfare, but it was also developed behind closed doors without even a preview of its content. I think it's scheduled now to be heard tomorrow evening. The new funding plan will fail because it was never built to succeed. Ever since the introduction of SB 543 2 years ago, NSC has expressed policy concerns at every opportunity. A lack of educator voice, no new revenue, watering down Zoom and Victory schools, freezing and squeezing school district budgets, a giveaway to charter schools, and undoing the rules of collective bargaining. SB 439 fails to address a single issue raised by educators, showing its backers to be unserious about delivering a funding plan to benefit all Nevada students. Nevada ranks 48th among states in education funding, yet the new funding plan includes no new funding. While the Funding Commission has recommended a 10-year plan for Nevada to increase education funding by $2 billion per year, SB 439 completely ignores these recommendations. Meanwhile, SB 439 further moves Nevada backward by proposing to strike language in the NRS that reference merit salary increases and cost of living adjustments. If the legislature is intent on moving forward with the implementation of the new funding formula, NSCA recommends making 3 changes to ensure the new plan does significantly less harm to Nevada's students and educators. First, grandfather existing Zoom and Victory schools located in Nevada's poorest communities, serving the highest percentage of at-risk students, proven models of education equity. Second, hold districts truly harmless by using the greater of the 2020 total budget or per pupil amount by district, adjusted by the inflationary costs of doing business. Finally, remove anti-union language that increases the district's ending fund balance walled off from collective bargaining to 16.6% of annual operating costs to preserve the collective bargaining process. Please listen to educators. Any trailing legislation that does not bring new revenue or address these serious policy concerns is doomed to fail Nevada educators and students. Thank you.
Next caller, please.
If you have recently joined the call and would like to provide public comment, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, the public line is open and working. However, there are no further callers at this time.
Thank you very much. So committee members, with that, I believe our business for this evening is done. Thank you all very much. We are adjourned.